Hello, beautiful soul. I want to welcome you into this video that's really launching 2026 off for me, for Sacredness Within You, and for those of you that have been part of my community from the beginning. And for those of you that have been with me from the beginning, you've known that this evolution that I've gone through, there are times that I show up on YouTube and then there's times that I don't. And for me, it's really about honoring my journey, honoring how it is that I'm here to serve and where it is that I am meant to be pouring my medicine, my wisdom into. And so this video is going to be a little bit more unique than some of my other videos because I'm going to dive into talking about the evolution of my journey, but also to sacredness within you. And I want to give a little bit of teaching to help you support your own personal journey, whether you're on the twin flame journey or you're on your path of awakening, to really help you start 2026 off with a bang for yourself. Because as many of you know, this is the year of the horse. Many of us spent 2025 really shedding things that are no longer serving us because it was a year of the snake. For me, it started back in January of last year of 2025 when I decided to fully step into my purpose, my mission, and going even deeper into my calling into 2026. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. And if you're new here, I want to welcome you. My name is Melissa, and this is the Sacredness Within You. I really created this channel, I don't know, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, to help support women on their path of awakening. And then it evolved into me showing up fully for a while as a twin flame coach, as a twin flame mentor. And over the past, I would say 4 months, as I was preparing energetically within my business and within me of how I was wanting to show up in 2026, things began to evolve. And now Sacredness Within You is going to be able to help support feminines who are on their path of awakening, rediscover that sacredness that's within them, and help all of you that are connected in my channel and those of you who will be coming into my community to become the Sacred Feminine Alchemist of your life. And so I want to deep dive into this and really talk about some of the things that have been behind the scenes and what you can expect for 2026. But before I do, for those of you that have been with me for a really long time, I want to say thank you. I see you and I'm so grateful that you have been part of my channel and willing to be part of my community and receive what it is that I'm here to share with you. And many of you have known me as a twin flame coach, as a twin flame mentor, and as a healer. And none of that is going away. I'm just going to be extending out how it is that I'm here to serve. My calling is calling me deeper into my own transformation, but also calling me to be able to spread my medicine, my words, and my healing out to those who are meant to receive it. So I'm not leaving the twin flame world because the twin flame journey is part of my journey, and it's part of many of your journeys that are part of this channel. And others, it's not. And those are the people that I want to call into this space as well. Because if I want to be truthful, I've always known that the twin flame journey was going to be a part of how I serve and part of who I serve. And now it's about who I'm really evolving into and who it is that I truly want to serve, because serving the feminine twin flame collective serves as purpose for me, and it still always will. And it has been preparing me for something bigger. And that is actually part of our journey for those of you that are feminines on the twin flame path. Because Sacredness Within You was never meant to be contained to just a twin flame journey, just to the twin flame relationship. It was actually the initiation that I needed to open the doorway to where it is that I'm going now with Sacredness Within You and within my platform here on YouTube. Because I've learned on my path that my twin flame journey, and I've known this for a really long time, was never the destination. It was the activation, the initiation, the awakening, right? To remembering who it is I am meant to be in this lifetime. And along the way, it's helped me understand parts of me. And as I have gone deeper into my work and deeper into inner union, I've learned that it is a part of who I am. It's never meant to be identified of who I am or what it is that I'm here to experience in my human existence. And for many of you, you followed that medicine because there was a resonance within you, right? And your soul recognized it and you knew that you were meant to receive that. And now I'm excited because I'll be pouring into you all that I have learned over this past year so you can utilize that information to catapult your journey even farther forward than where it is that you are now. So I want to share with something with you that's really the honest truth. And what I realized on my journey, and I touched about this a little bit, is that I could no longer be the mentor, the coach, the spiritual guide, whatever, however it is that you see me. I could never just hold like a single spiritual identity anymore because my soul, as I've been doing this work, has been calling me deep into this embodiment of who I'm meant to be in this lifetime. And I remember as I was being guided through the work that I was doing and the guidance that I was receiving from my guides, that it was time to walk away from just being seen as a twin flame coach and as a twin flame mentor. And I want to be honest with all of you, like I struggled with that a little bit because I felt like I was leaving a part of me behind, a part of me that identified as something for like 2 years, right? And what I realized was through that I'm not leaving a part of me behind. I've integrated that part of me into who I am, but also in terms of who it is that I'm going to serve. Because in my work that I did with feminines that I've worked with on the twin flame journey, we've overcome some of the biggest challenges and struggles that we face, right? Like the obsessive thinking, third party dynamics, the push pull dynamic. I mean, all of it. And I've shared a lot of wisdom both on here and on TikTok to help support you through those challenges that we face. But I also learned through the work that I experienced with these women, it was more about connecting to your body, connecting to your intuition. That soft little part of you that says, this is the way. That part of us that many of us like do not listen to because of the overconsumption of twin flame content, the overconsumption of tarot readings, and we begin to cloud our own judgment, and we don't always listen to that part of it ourselves. And part of it is that we've been conditioned not to trust that part. We've been conditioned not to believe in that part and to really navigate our life, our journey through our mind. And the reality is our mind isn't meant to always be the part of us that helps us navigate our journey. And I often talk about this in my work on TikTok, is the mental part is connected to our masculine energy. And many feminines have been navigating their lives a lot from their masculine energy. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, because it does serve a purpose. Because masculine energy, as we've talked about, in I think on here and in all of my containers and on TikTok, is its forward moving energy. And we need to have masculine energy to be able to move our personal journey forward. But then our feminine energy is what is helping us expand our consciousness, right? Because it's more vertical energy. And one of the mistakes that I've made is I usually focus on one or the other. So I'm either moving my journey forward or I'm moving it up. And what I've learned is, as feminines, whether we're on the twin flame journey or not, it's about moving forward and up at the same time. And so teaching my clients how to discern and utilize their intuition versus a conditioning is something that has allowed me to see where it is that I need to serve now. And also with the women that I've worked with, we've talked about energetic sovereignty, being the sovereign being that we're meant to be in this lifetime, and to untangle ourselves in all the ways that we've woven ourselves into our twin flame journey, into our twin flame connection. And once you can start to untangle those parts and have healthy energetic boundaries with yourself and with your twin, you start to become a sovereign being. And what I started realizing in my external reality was there are women who are not in twin flame relationships. That might be in a karmic relationship, might be in a marriage or a dynamic where they truly love this person. They want to be able to grow together. How to be able to do that as well. Because I think a lot of us in the twin flame world think that we're the only ones that experience these things. But the reality is, as a collective, many people experience the same thing. The only difference is that the intensity might be different, and because we're looking at a person who is us in another body, and there's this pull towards them in many ways, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like that, it can be harder for us to actually see how to be able to untangle ourselves. And so what I realized as I was continuing to work with these feminines that I had connected with through, sacredness within you in the beginning, was that some of them were coming to me asking for support on their twin flame journey, asking for my guidance in terms of what is this here to teach them and how to overcome some of those biggest challenges. But what I really realized was, and this happened probably a couple of months ago in a couple of my sessions, is a lot of women were coming to me to help understand how they could become the alchemists of their own world, and how they could transmute their pain into personal power, and how to begin to integrate their shadow into who they are, and not let that part of them be the part that's operating the show, right? And to allow their inner magnetism and their intuition to lead them down this path. And I often talk about this a lot in my 3D reality with people, is in the book The Alchemist. And this is what kind of started unraveling some of the things for me to see where it is that I am now and where it is that I want to go. Was when I reread The Alchemist this summer, and he talks about in that book of allowing your desires to lead you. Because when we have a desire on our heart, a desire that's coming through from our soul, it's a remembrance of an experience that we're meant to have in this lifetime. And he talks about how that desire pulled him to meet all these incredible people that were actually helping him propel forward in his journey. And I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to begin to honor those desires. And the reality is last week, I wanted to go home for Christmas. When I say home, it's Mexico, to where my family, people who I call my family, are at, and I didn't get to go. And I realized that by not going, I started to understand that there were 3 really strong desires that I had suppressed because of conditioning, because of collective thoughts within the twin flame journey. And that's when I started really realizing that I need to be able to use my desires to continue to allow me to move forward. And I want to teach women how to do the same. And so what I also want to touch base on in terms of this transition from, a sacredness within you, the twin flame coach and mentor, into the sacredness within you, which is also the Sacred Feminine Alchemist. How I show up, how I teach is going to be very different, because I no longer am the person or the coach that wants you to fixate on outcomes. I want you to be able to utilize those desires to pull your journey forward, to honor these parts of yourself. But not only that, I no longer want to be the person that's giving you the answers to why something is happening, giving you the meaning and the understanding behind things, because that's part of your journey, is to learn to understand why something is showing up in your reality. And instead, what I want to do is help support you in the embodiment part of it, getting into your body, because I know many of you are like myself. And to move from your mind into your body can be for lack of better words, a scary transition, because we've been so disconnected from our body. And when we think about the word embodiment, embodiment is meaning in your body, and that's where the deepest wisdom, the deepest desires live. And so I want to also be able to teach you to no longer have that identity attachment around things and move into honoring your sacred path. So I want to talk about this initiatory spiral that I have experienced, that I see my clients experience. And for me, like I talked about in this journey, is my twin flame journey was the initiation. It was the initiation to my awakening. And the longer that I've been on my twin flame journey, it's become a part of who I am. And I don't identify as it being everything about who I am. And I started really realizing that that path was helping me understand things like my own inner feminine and my own inner masculine, and how I needed to cultivate that inner union within me. But also, too, I started seeing that the separation between my twin and I was actually a reflection of my separation within myself, but also to God. And when I fully went into serving and showing up in the way that I did on TikTok, mostly because I realized that as a one person operator, everything and doing everything behind the scenes, I really needed to find a platform that was easy for me to learn what it is I needed to do. All the while, there was this little voice in my back of my mind that always told me YouTube is where it is that I'm meant to be. But there was a part of me that was afraid to lean into what TikTok could bring. And when I went into serving fully, is when I started to come deeper into alignment, deeper into understanding how I actually lacked masculine structure in my life. And then once I started seeing that, I started seeing how me serving the Twin Flame Collective was the initiation into who I'm going to be serving now. And so I want to talk about 3 different phases that we usually experience in our awakening and in our journey of becoming who it is that we're meant to be in our life. And so the first phase is what I call the mirror phase. And for those of you that have been with me for a while, this is the deep understanding that we know as twin flames, right? That our twin flame is our mirror to ourself. And it's a way that we can be able to understand and see the things about ourselves that we no longer could see or want to see. But not only that, it gave us insight to understanding how our own inner masculine showed up, and gave us an understanding within our connection of what it was going on in between our own inner feminine and masculine. And this mirroring phase, I want you all to know that this doesn't just happen in the twin flame path. And actually, it was introduced to kind of this mirror concept back in oh my God, right before I met my twin, back in 2016, through the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. He talked about this in the book and how the world is your mirror. And if you're somebody that's watching this that is in a relationship, that relationship that you're in can be part of your soul's growth and your journey, and an opportunity for you to understand what needs to be unraveled on the inside, what needs to be loved and nourished, or what ways you are needing to shift so you can become the woman that you're wanting to be in this lifetime. But not only that, if you're not in a relationship, your world, whether you're in a relationship or not, I should say, your 3D reality is a reflection of what's going on in the inside. And if you can really lean into this medicine and truly understand this concept, you can actually accelerate your own personal growth, because this is where the deepest transformation and understanding your wounds, understanding how you operate, looking at your conditioning that you have taken on, looking at the templates that you've incarnated in regards to money and love, all these things. The world and these dynamics that you're in are here to teach you about yourself. But this also too, in the mirror phase, is what helps awaken the feminine nervous system. And many of us feminines that are on this planet right now have been operating from a more masculine nervous system, or even a more flight or fight nervous system, right? Because we're under constant stress, this constant pressure to perform or to be a certain way based on how we were conditioned to be a woman. And so this phase is really an important phase. And I remember being in this phase for a while. And I still utilize this because if there's something that's happening repeatedly in my reality, I ask myself, like, why is this showing up in my reality? What is this here to teach me about me? And I remember when something's here to teach us about ourselves, we're not broken. There's nothing that we need to fix. It just means that there is something that is actually covering up our true essence. So the second phase that I want to talk about is the alchemist phase, like the alchemy phase. And this is really where I started realizing that I really wanted to start tapping into and teaching other women how to become the sacred feminine alchemist, right? Because for so long, us women, were dependent upon men based out of survival. We needed to be in a marriage in order to survive. And over time, that became less and less. And now, where it is that many of us women are, is that we are operating underneath our masculine energy and not honoring that feminine part of us, right? Like, I always like to think of it back when I was doing direct sales. Like, I was in my boss babe era, right? Like, I was successful in it. I was pushing. I was, chasing after my dreams. But I was deeply disconnected from my feminine essence. And at that time as well, my heart was closed. And when you move into the Sacred Feminine Alchemist, which you're embodying who you are meant to be, you're still transforming your life, right? But in a different way, and you're extremely powerful, but it's not because you're chasing after something. It's because you've already started to learn that what it is that you are seeking is also seeking you, and that you can, step into your true essence and allow the inspired action that you take and co-creating with God and the universe to allow what is meant to be in your life to become forward. And as the sacred feminine alchemist, instead of asking, what does this mean? Why is this happening to me? Which is a wounded feminine, right? Why is this happening to me? I wanted to be able to teach other women to say, how is this here to support me in my journey? What is this activating within me, within my body? And begin to work and understand, how to embody our feminine essence, but also to understand the cycles that we go through in life, not only in our physical body, but actually life itself, but to integrate your shadow, to experience all that you can in life, and even if that's sadness or grief, all the way up to unconditional love, but also to teach women how to utilize their intuition to be able to navigate this journey forward. So really, in terms of how it is I want to show up, is I'm stop guiding women through a specific journey, right? I'm no longer just going to be solely focused on guiding women in a specific journey, but to now help women, to guide them through their own personal journey. Because whether you're in a twin flame journey or not, your spiritual awakening is about you. It's about your soul's growth, you expanding your consciousness. And so phase 3 is the embodied woman, right? Like the embodied feminine that you are wanting to be. Because the embodied feminine, she no longer is identified with the past. She doesn't allow the past to hold her back. She doesn't allow her past to define her and to dim her light and to play small. She let go of that story. She's integrated those parts within her. Because when we integrate something that we've held in our shadow for so long, no one can use that against you. And a lot of times, our shadow, what I have found with working with my clients, actually holds some of our biggest gifts and our positive things in our world. And sometimes they can hold something that we would consider bad or whatnot, right? But she no longer allows that to define her. She no longer allows that to stop her. And she starts to begin to trust in deepening that trust, right? Like I talk about the titration process in a lot of my work, about little by little you're deepening your connection to yourself. Little by little you're deepening your trust in your intuition. Little by little you're embodying your feminine essence. Little by little you're embodying your inner union, right? And I think one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in women that I've worked with is they think it's going to happen overnight. Like, oh, overnight, I'm just in my feminine energy. Oh, life is great. No, because if we were actually to fully step into our feminine essence, we were actually to fully step into inner union overnight, our nervous system would fry. We wouldn't be able to hold that. And that's the biggest thing I've learned over this last year is how to work with your nervous system to be able to hold more, to feel safe more in your body, to be able to feel safe in expansion and to feel safe and trusting and knowing that you are your own oracle. Everything that you need is already within you. And I'm just here to be that mirror to help you gain access to that, to help you gain access to your discernment, your intuition, and to provide you with some tools and resources that I know have worked, and to also to provide you with things that do not work. So that way, if you are doing those things, I know hands down, as a 3-5 emotional projector, that's part of my world. For those of you who followed me from the beginning, you know that my soul loves to take the long way to wherever it is that I'm going. And in the beginning, it would really truly bother me that I would be like, God, I'm way over here and everyone else is so much farther ahead of me. And what I started realizing after my awakening is that I actually enjoy that because I look at life as an experiment and to experience all that I can. Because if you were to look at the things that I enjoy in life, it's actually to have experiences. I want to have as many experiences as I can, which is why my soul chose to experience all that I can. And for those of you that are in my community, it's to your benefit because you can say, oh, I know that this doesn't work because I trust Melissa. She says it doesn't work, so I'm not even going to try that. And then to take whatever it is that's in my teachings and anyone else's teachings that resonate with you, because that's where that discernment comes in, to find that resonance of like, is this my truth? And if it is, then claim it as your own. I give you full permission to claim it as your own and start applying it to your journey right away. Because that's what the embodied feminine does. She's in tune to her body and she listens and receives with her body, right? Not listening and receiving from the mind. Because I've talked about this before in other videos and on TikTok, is that there's two things that your ego fears the most, especially for those of you that are in a twin flame journey, is your twin flame and the divine. You know, if you're not on the twin flame journey, really it's a divine union that your ego fears. And divine union is very different than a typical normal relationship. Because those of you that are awakening will start to understand how we used a relationship before your awakening will no longer apply after you start awakening. But also too, the embodied feminine, she's so connected to herself that she has this deep intimacy with herself and with life and within her world. And when I talk about intimacy, it's not always about sensuality or sexuality. It's truly about how deeply connected you are to yourself, you know, and how how vulnerable you can be with yourself and how vulnerable you can be with those that you trust around you, right? And I started like unraveling this intimacy part like many years ago, and I started really realizing that my deepest friendships are very intimate. They're very close, and those are the relationships that I cherish because my soul craves those types of relationships because of the depth that they bring. Because I love depth in my life. I love depth in terms of conversation around life, around the spiritual awakening. I mean, all of that. And so the people that are in my world that are close to me know that. And I have very intimate relationships with them, which is why I also keep my circle very, very small. But not only that, with embodied feminine, relationships become an expression for her and not sources of her identity, not sources of her happiness, not sources of her financial stability. She doesn't outsource anything that she desires, anything that she wants. She becomes that first, right? That becomes her expression of herself. So she's wanting to have financial stability. She learns how to become that source for herself by embodying abundance, right? Embodying wealth. That is part of her expression. She's honoring that part of her. And she's no longer outsourcing what it is that she desires financially from anyone else. Yet at the same time, she allows the masculine in her life to provide. So I wanted to just kind of give you some of those teachings to be able to help you kind of look at where it is that you're at in your journey, and also give you some things to look forward to what it is that I'll be sharing here. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose Sacred Feminine Alchemist in terms of how I wanted to support women. And I want to talk about the word sacred because the word sacred to me is about being devoted to yourself. It's about being devoted to yourself. It's about being devoted to truth. And there's something that I've always felt is very sacred about all of us, because even though there's 8 billion people on the planet, each and every one of us play a vital role in the evolution of humanity and our planet, and each one of us is sacred. Each one of us is divine. And for me, I've always wanted to be able to work and support other women. So the feminine part of me, I really wanted to honor her, because for most of my life I didn't. I shut her down, right? I suppressed her. And now, as an embodied feminine, I want to be able to help other women learn how to receive, to trust that intuitive part of them and that cyclical part of ourselves, right? Within our physical body, but also too in our life, because we go through cycles. And a lot of feminines get caught up in those cycles and patterns and don't always understand how to end the loop and end the pattern. We're going to be diving into that stuff as well, which then leads me to the alchemist. Because as an alchemist, we take what's happening in your internal world and we transform it, not by bypassing, not by, false positivity or affirmations, but by actually unraveling things and looking at what is this here to activate within you. And I know those of you that have been with me for a really long time know that I was the queen of spiritual bypassing. For my first several years, I would just scratch the surface of my journey, and I would do false, positivity to try to affirm my way out of situations. And there came a time where God was like, nope, you're no longer going to be able to do that. You have to be able to face what it is that you are here to face. And so that's why I chose the Sacred Feminine Alchemist as kind of like my new identity, right? Because I also want all of you that are part of my community to do the same. Because the bottom line is, an alchemist doesn't try to escape the pain. An alchemist knows how to transform it without making it part of her identity. And that's where I want to be able to lead all of you in 2026. Because when you become the alchemist of your journey, You no longer are chasing after healing. You are no longer caught up in this belief that I have to keep healing. If something in my life isn't happening or coming towards me, I need to heal more. And I've been there. And that's where the alchemist does things differently. She knows that she's done the work, she's done the healing, and now she's here to transform her reality by also shifting her identity, shifting into an embodiment of who she's meant to be. So, for example, I started doing a lot of identity work probably 2 months ago. I went all in shifting my identity of how I wanted to show up, who I wanted to embody, who I wanted to see myself as. And I really had to go in and transform so many things around my subconscious beliefs and the embodiment of that version of me. And it took time. It took time and time again of just embodying that energetic version of me. And the more that I could hold that frequency, the more I started seeing my reality shift. The more I started seeing how this version of me was no longer going to allow certain things in my life. And that's what I want to be able to teach all of you, so you can start transmuting that in your life as well. Because it's not always about healing more. Some of you, and this will only apply to some of you that are in my community right now, some of you haven't gone to the depth that you need to do. And others of you have done the work and are ready to start transforming and integrating what it is that you've learned. And so many of us miss that integration part. But not only that, the alchemist, she's ready for depth. She's ready to go all in and no longer scratch the surface. So to kind of recap some of the stuff we talked about, how my work used to be just geared towards feminists on the twin flame journey. And I still am going to hold that sacred place for the feminines. And in the beginning, some of my work is still going to be geared around that until I fully expand into the Sacred Feminine Alchemist. And so I want, for those of you that are part of my twin flame community, to know that that part is always going to remain. It's just going to be a smaller part, and to trust in the knowing of the medicine that's going to be presented to you on here is going to help you expand beyond that identity within yourself of just being a twin flame, because you are more than that. And that's more, you are here to experience more than just your twin flame journey. It's just a part of who you are. But my work is now for women who are no longer defined by a journey, defined by a certain situation, but they're here to step into their power and to be able to really honor that inner authority that is within them. And so who this tends to look like is women who have had a spiritual awakening, have been on this path for a while. And perhaps she's been in a relationship that has transformed her, right? It could be a twin flame journey. It could be somebody who was in a karmic connection, somebody who is in a connection that just knows that there's more and they're willing to grow together. Or even the woman who isn't in a relationship right now, right? And has decided that she's going to be celibate for a while and focus on her. But also, too, this is for the woman who is done seeking answers outside of her and ready to seek embodiment, to seek her own spiritual wisdom, her own truth. And so with what it is I'm sharing with you and talking about what is to come here on Sacredness Within You in 2026, if you're feeling that pull to go deeper in embodiment, deeper into a more intimate relationship with yourself, with your intuition, and with your feminine power, I want you to know that you're standing at a threshold. You are literally at the threshold where you can either continue to dim your light and play small and allow the past to hold you back, or you can go beyond that and take that step into that next phase of your journey. And so I want to give you, or really what I should want to say is like, let this video be the permission to release all that is no longer serving you, to release who you've been, and to trust in who it is that you are becoming. because for those of you that have done the work and did all the shedding in 2025, I promise you 2026 is going to be amazing, and I want to be right there beside you, helping support you in any way that I can. And so, beautiful soul, I'm sending you so much love and light, and thank you for showing up and connecting with me in this video, and I look forward to connecting with you in my next video. And until next time.